from the Mercy One studio.
Support for Faith on Trial and Iowa Catholic Radio provided in part by Imogene Ingredients.
Our freedom of conscience and religion is being challenged by laws and regulations imposed by secular society. It's time to hear from the top Christian litigators in the nation who have come forward to tell us the truth and help us defend our faith.
Hear ye, hear ye. All rise. Faith on Trial with Defender of the Faith, Deacon Mike Mano, is in session.
A good Thursday morning from the Mercy One Studios in West Des Moines. I'm Deacon Mike Mano, and I'm here with Gina Knoll.
Good morning.
Good morning, Gina. And I think we have a pretty decent show for us today.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about an issue very important to Iowans, especially Iowans who are pro-life, and how things are changing on our horizon. We always seem to be at the center of these innovative ways to
I think so.
destroy human life.
And now we're talking about abortion by mail.
That's right.
Yeah, and that's so Maggie DeWittie is going to be with us in a few minutes. We're going to talk to her more about that. And then we're going to get back to the Little Blaine amendments that we were going to talk about last week, but there was a scheduling problem. So we have Leo Patterson, who is coming back this week, and to talk about that case,
the thing that's interesting
versus Montana.
Excuse me. The things that are interesting to me with the Blaine Amendment is how Catholic-centric those amendments are. That the whole purpose of them was to hold back the Catholic members of the Catholic Church and not allow them to do as many things as they, the churches and the schools and the services they provided to other Americans. It'll be an interesting discussion.
Well, you got to remember when the original Blaine Amendment was proposed, it was something like 1875, something like that, and that was during the time of nativism.
The big Blaine Amendments on the federal level.
The time of nativism and anti-Catholicism in the country, and as a result, there was an attempt to pass this national constitutional amendment that would have prohibited any public funds from going to Catholic schools. It was directed at Catholic schools. It was any protest
at the schools.
It was directed at the schools. Yeah, and so what happened was that Blaine Amendment was never formally adopted, and it may have been one of the reasons why Mr. Blaine did not become president, because he did get the Republican nomination.
People got involved and voted.
People got involved, and there was a big religious thing in the state of New York at the time, which cost Blaine the state of New York, and which would have been the election with him. Right. And so anyway, but by 1900, we had about 30 states having what I call Little Blaine amendments that did the same thing. And so Montana had one. We're going to talk about how the Supreme Court resolved that difficulty with the Montana election, or the Montana case. Just a couple of weeks ago they did that.
And it'll affect then all of the Little Blaine
amendments. And how far it will affect it, we don't know yet. How narrow that ruling was. Right. And I think it was a little maybe more narrow than we'd like to believe. So it may be interpreted later, especially by lower courts, a little bit differently.
We're looking forward to the First Liberty telling us how they feel that went.
And then I should have mentioned this last week. For some reason it skipped my mind, but there was a case we talked about a couple of weeks ago in Texas. It was an interesting child custody case. What had happened was the parents were divorced, and mom and dad had a joint custody agreement they worked out through the court, in which case, whereby the court found that both parents were fit parents, but they gave primary physical custody of the little girl to mom. Mom then eventually had her boyfriend move in with her. She was then killed in a car accident, and the boyfriend came and said, well, I'm entitled to custody. And the lower courts in Texas granted him joint custody with dad. And dad said, no, that's not right. I'm a legitimate biological father who's been found to be a good parent. I'm entitled to full custody of my daughter now. That went up to the Texas Supreme Court, and a couple of weeks ago, the Texas Supreme Court unanimously ruled in favor of the father.
So he has custody of his child.
So he has custody of the little girl now, and the boyfriend is... Well, he has to find another woman, I guess. So I don't know.
Yeah, and he's probably spoiled the relationship.
He may have a little bit, and so. But now the little girl's where she's supposed to be, and dad has custody of her. And it upheld the rule that says basically that if a parent is found to be fit, there's no reason to disturb the relationship.
Right.
Okay? And that should be the first rule, that you don't disturb a parental-child relationship unless somehow the parent is deemed to be unfit.
Right. And we had a big case in Iowa many years ago that kind of had that same, I mean, it was heartbreaking, but through an adoption, the child was adopted, the parent was found later, and the courts ruled in favor of the biological parent. And unfortunately, that child only knew those parents that had adopted. So
they say in the law that hard cases make bad law. And that's what happens. You have a hard case like that. You want to do what's best, but yet you have to realize that you're setting a precedent, perhaps. And that precedent may set up...
is necessary for the...
Right, and the precedent may be hard on this case, but the precedent is a valid precedent that has to be followed. So
I see.
Anyway, we're fallible people.
Lawyers' jobs are never easy.
No, they never, and we never get paid enough money for it.
Well, some might argue that.
My wife won't. All right, you have a prayer to open us up with?
I do. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. God of peace, bring your peace to our violent world, peace in the hearts of all men and women, and peace among the nations of this earth. Turn to your way of love those whose hearts and minds are consumed with hatred. Strengthen us all in hope, and give us the wisdom and courage to work tirelessly for a world where true peace and love reign among nations and in the hearts of all. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. Maggie DeWittie, Executive Director of Iowans for Life, will join us right after this.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and John Leonetti in the Morning is provided by Blessman International. According to a 2019 Global Food Security Report, more than 820 million people in the world are hungry today. None of us can help all of them. Most of us can help one child. Your gift of $1 a day through Blessman International provides a child in South Africa with a daily hot meal, place of safety, educational experience, and spiritual development. To get started, go to blessmaninternational.org and click Sponsor a Child.
Thank you, Big Red Q Quick Print, for underwriting the sports report. Family owned and operated since 1980, Big Red Q Quick Print is a full-service print shop ready to help you with all your printing needs with speed and accuracy. Forms, manuals, brochures, letterhead, envelopes, business cards, custom invitations, design, and bindery. Big Red Q Quick Print, located across from Merle Hay Mall. Online at bigredq-desmoines.com. Big Red Q Quick Print. We make printing easy.
Is it time for a new roof? Then it could be time for you to get to know Bell Construction. Bell Construction is a roofing company entering its 30th year of business. They specialize in residential re-roofs, light commercial jobs, and have the experience to meet all of your roofing needs with personal service. With Bell Construction, the owner will come to your home or place of business in person to inspect and ensure the quality of work that you deserve. They pride themselves in working with you on a personal basis and making sure you are satisfied. Bell Construction, 515-963-4494.
What is the best gift ever? Giving a Catholic education is at the top of my list. Your contribution to CTO helps families send their children to our Catholic schools who otherwise could not afford it. In giving to CTO, you receive the best tax credits ever. Pledge or donate online at ctoiowa.org. The bottom line, it's for the kids and their future.
Support for Dowling Catholic Sports on Iowa Catholic Radio is provided in part by Ashworth Vision Clinic. With 2 licensed optometrists, Barbara Sheets, a Dowling graduate, and Dr. Greg Harper, the Ashworth Vision Clinic team provides complete eye exams, contact lenses, glasses, glaucoma testing, and pre- and post-operative care. Ashworth Vision Clinic is located at Ashworth and 60th Street in West Des Moines, 515-440-4610, ashworthvision.com. 515-440-4610, ashworthvision.com. Ashworth Vision Clinic.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Faith on Trial provided by Paul Martin and Paul Mitchell, owners of Imogene Ingredients. Imogene Ingredients supply specialized feed ingredients for livestock and pet diets to improve maternal and young animal health in both conventional and organic production. And we are back, and with us is Maggie DeWittie, Executive Director of Iowans for Life. Maggie, good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning. Doing well, thank you.
Very good. It's nice to have you back in the program here. Well, maybe it's nice, we have you on usually when something bad is happening. and so we bring you on to try and straighten things out. We now have abortions by mail, I guess. You might want to explain to our listeners how that is all happening.
Right. Well, we need to go back to actually about 2012, 2013, and that was the first kind of pilot program that we had here in Iowa, and that was instigated by Planned Parenthood, and that was the webcam abortion. And that was the abortion where a woman would sit in front of her video screen, tell a doctor, presumably in Des Moines, but who knows where that doctor may be, that she wanted to have an abortion. He'd pop a button, and out the dangerous RU-486 abortion pill would be given to her. And that went through the Iowa Board of Medicine and ultimately the Iowa Supreme Court, and we failed in our efforts to eliminate that. So we have that still going on through Planned Parenthood. And now Emma Goldman in Iowa City, one of the other big abortion clinics in the state, wanted to get in on this whole kind of new and inventive way to harm women and kill unborn children.
And to make money.
And to make money, of course. And they partnered with a reproductive health, and I say that in quotes, group in New York. I believe it's called Annuity Health Projects. And the FDA normally does not allow abortion pills to be distributed by mail, but this health group in New York obtained federal permission to start this study in 2016. And of course, here in Iowa, we are one of the pilot states to do that. So now we know that over 1,000 women have used this system nationally and a handful here in Iowa. And basically a woman, again, has a virtual appointment with a staffer at Emma Goldman, and she then obtains an ultrasound from wherever she can get one, and then they simply package up the RU-486 and ship it to her home through the U.S. Postal System.
For $750.
Exactly. The same amount for a surgical abortion. So there's no discount to get it through the mail. Although I'm very concerned on a number of reasons, as we know, because people feel like this would be the better route because it's more anonymous. It leaves women very isolated, and we've seen and heard many, many stories from women who have undergone these medical abortions in their home. And in fact, Abby Johnson, author of Unplanned and a recent movie, describes her medical abortion, and she actually describes it as being in the middle of a crime scene. That was her description of her medical abortion, feeling and thinking that she was going to bleed to death in her bathroom.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of medical complications involved in this. I know, I think out in California, where else would they do this? They're ordering all the state university clinics to be able to hand out these pills by right to any of the students that are there. And there were some really horrific stories that came from that. Gals bleeding in their dorm bathrooms and things like that, and not having any medical staff or any medical help at hand.
Exactly. And they're isolated. And they're faced with the reality because a lot of these women then will see their dead child,
right?
Oftentimes in the toilet,
mm-hmm.
And that is so emotionally harming to these women who don't know then what to do and realize the ramifications of their actions, and it's devastating to them.
I really wonder why the FDA has allowed this sort of protocol to exist. I noticed that in many countries, the doctor they need to be on site and observed through the process of the chemical abortion. And the FDA originally had some really stringent requirements on issuing this RU 486, and then backed off within 2 or 3 months of their original issuance and made it more lax.
Exactly. We know the abortion industry is not being regulated whatsoever, and the fact is that this drug is not being handled the appropriate way, and there is no medical oversight. It's appalling to think that we're giving these women and young girls these dangerous drugs with no in-person visit from a doctor. That's just appalling to me that they're not required to have an in-person visit with a physician before receiving these drugs.
Well, and then when things go south, they end up in the emergency room and they have no history. The doctor attending to her has no idea what's going on. And they're faced with such a crisis at that point that the woman's life is truly in danger.
Absolutely. I mean, we know both for surgical abortion and medical abortion, not only is the woman scarred emotionally, but scarred physically. And there are countless women who have never been able to conceive children again, have had lifelong physical disabilities and issues with their reproductive system because of their abortion.
Well,
and
some of them have STDs, and if you don't take care of the STD first, that can cause sterilization.
Exactly. And so again, to that point, not having a physical examination in person is just unacceptable. And the other big concern I have is I'm not hearing anything about where we're finding out if these are minors. Can minors be obtaining these mail order drugs?
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Can a 13-year-old get this pill without her parents or anybody knowing?
Presumably so. She could. Where's the requirements? I'm not seeing anything about how they verify that this girl is of age.
Or in a situation of abuse. This makes it even easier for her abuser to... I mean, we've had on the show different stories of abusers who have taken their a young lady that they are abusing to have an abortion in a clinic without any questions, in, out. Now it's even easier for the abuser to cover it up, to work with their abused young lady and have her call in and get this medicine, and no one needs to be the wiser except this poor young child, really, in most cases. It suffers the consequences.
Exactly. The, human traffickers and rapists, they love the abortion industry because they provide cover for them.
They do.
For them to continue to harm and abuse young women and families.
Now, what is the rush now for all these mail order pills or the telemed abortions? Why not just go to a clinic?
Well, I think that we're seeing more and more brick and mortar clinics going under. If you look here in Iowa, in 2012 we had close to 24 Planned Parenthood clinics. Now we're at 9. And it's shrinking across the country. There's less and less brick and mortar, and there are less and less doctors willing to perform abortions. So the abortion industry is having to come up with new and innovative ways to harm women and kill children, and that's the way they're going. They feel like this is going to be more anonymous. Of course, as you noted, they're not charging them any less, and so there's less oversight when you don't have to have a actual physical clinic. And so in the end, they're going to be making more money because they're not requiring women to be seen by anyone. There are no clinics to maintain, And so they're going to continue to see their profits go up while all of their expenses for an actual clinic are going down.
I kind of wonder if you're going to have any type of procedure like this done, shouldn't you have a full medical evaluation of the person? And yet that's not being done. Basically, you just prove you're pregnant and say you want the pill, pay your money, and you got it.
Exactly. There could be underlying conditions. There could be a whole host of things happening, and these doctors at Emma Goldman would never know. These clinic staffers, I'm not even sure they're doctors, their staff, whoever sees these women virtually, would have no clue of any of their background without evaluating her in person and doing some diagnostics and some testing and just also having a face-to-face conversation, which to Gina's point would help root out possible human trafficking and abuse situations.
Mm-hmm. In addition, there's a huge, I think the failure rate is rather high, especially as you get closer to 10 weeks of gestation. The infant is at risk under these conditions. Can you speak to that at all? Have you seen any studies of how that all plays out?
Yeah, I mean, when the baby isn't fully removed through these RU-486 pills, then they are going to have to go in to an emergency room, and that can cause all kinds of complications. But then, yes, there is a failure rate with that, and surgical abortion. Our own Melissa Oden, who was from Iowa, she's in Kansas City now. She was through a botched saline infused abortion and survived. So there are survivors of botched abortions, and so you have that complication as well.
Those mothers to have to know that they did this to their child would be very devastating to the mother also, I would imagine.
Absolutely.
Now, is there a time frame on this that you have to be less than so many weeks pregnant?
Well, if you can trust the guidelines, but we've been hearing they've been being skirted here. But according to what we're being told, the woman needs to be 10 weeks or under to receive these through the mail. And that's why they're requiring the ultrasound to verify that.
But does the ultrasound really show that?
Well, and
clearly?
That's a good question. Yeah, because is there certain requirements of where they get the ultrasound?
And when? I mean, is it date stamped? Just all of these things. The desperation sometimes for a woman in crisis is unbelievable. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I'll have to go back and I can't find it rather quickly, but I thought the manufacturer of this RU-486, and it's a couple of pills, in case our listeners, there's an initial pill that takes care of some things, and then after some time you take the second medication to continue the abortion.
If you do it right.
If it's done correctly.
If you follow the directions, and that's another problem with this, yeah.
But I thought the manufacturer recommended, I want to say 8 weeks was the maximum for this procedure.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Everywhere I've heard it's been the 10-week, but I had heard they were pushing the limit even to 11 and sometimes 12 weeks on this. But my understanding had always been that the FDA had recommended that they be 10-week or under to receive the RU-486 regimen.
Well, I know what a 10-week developed baby looks like, and I can't imagine being at home and seeing that happen, being part of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would freak a young girl out.
I think anybody, really.
Yeah. But especially somebody who's not expecting it. Because when you go into an abortion clinic, they kind of shield you from those things. Mm-hmm. You don't get to see the ultrasound. Maybe if you beg and ask, they might show, but other than that, they won't show you the ultrasound. All the fetal material that's removed is taken away. You don't see any of that. So to the person who's going through it, it's a clean clinical process. And yet now with this, do it yourself at home. First of all, you got to read the instructions and do it correctly, and then you have to put up with the aftermath of it emotionally, and
sure.
That's going to be tough.
Well, and even physically, because I think I read that some women can have what am I trying to say? Side effects that last well into 6, 8, 10 weeks of cramping and bleeding. And infection and you name it.
And a lifetime of mental pain.
Right.
Yes.
So what can we do to tamper this down? Is there anything are there reports being done, follow-ups to find out how the patients are turning out after taking the medication?
Yeah, those are all great questions, which I don't have the answers for, which is disturbing. What are the requirements for reporting on this? And how would they know? They mail the pills, the girl takes them, then how would they know whether they were successful? That leaves the reporting of this very difficult to do. And I know that the Iowa Board of Medicine is reviewing this and reviewing this policy that Emma Goldman has started to do here in Iowa, but they've made no determination about it. And so now we really need to kind of talk to our representatives in the legislature. We need to talk to our, representatives federally, Joni Ernst and Grassley and several others, and make sure that they're aware this is happening in Iowa and get them aware of this and looking into this, because I think those are the first steps. Is we need to make sure that our elected officials are aware this is even happening here in Iowa. And
I'm sure Kim Reynolds is aware of it, and
yes,
I know what side she's going to come down on that.
Exactly,
yeah.
And we really need to flesh out how this is happening. Is it being regulated? How is it being reported? Is this legal? Yes, they got obtained federal permission, but up to that point, this was not allowed. You were not allowed to mail these dangerous drugs.
Yeah. If people need more information or want to contact your organization, do you have a website you can give them?
Yep, IowansForLife.org, and we just recently put a blog post out about this called Mail Order Abortion Pills Come to Iowa. And so you can click on our blog and read more about what we just talked about today.
Very
Wonderful.
good. And thank you very much for joining us, and I hope people will follow up on that because this certainly is a dangerous turn. Maggie DeWittie, Executive Director of Iowans for Life, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Take care.
And we will be right back in about 3 minutes.
Is it time for a new roof? Then it could be time for you to get to know Bell Construction. Bell Construction is a roofing company entering its 30th year of business. They specialize in residential re-roofs, light commercial jobs, and have the experience to meet all of your roofing needs with personal service. With Bell Construction, the owner will come to your home or place of business in person to inspect and ensure the quality of work that you deserve. They pride themselves in working with you on a personal basis and making sure you are satisfied. Bell Construction, 515-963-4494.
What is the best gift ever? Well, some might say a Catholic education, and I agree. But if you think you can't afford Catholic education, think again. Apply for CTO, and you could receive up to half your tuition for kindergarten through 12th grade. More information is online, ctoiowa.org. The bottom line, it's for the kids and their future.
Support for Dowling Catholic Sports on Iowa Catholic Radio is provided in part by Ashworth Vision Clinic. With 2 licensed optometrists, Barbara Sheets, a Dowling graduate, and Dr. Greg Harper, the Ashworth Vision Clinic team provides complete eye exams, contact lenses, glasses, glaucoma testing, and pre- and post-operative care. Ashworth Vision Clinic is located at Ashworth and 60th Street in West Des Moines, 515-440-4610, ashworthvision.com. 515-440-4610, ashworthvision.com. Ashworth Vision Clinic.
Thank you, Dental Associates, for underwriting Dowling Catholic Sports 365. With over 40 years' experience, Dental Associates is a group dental practice with the mission of promoting optimum health and well-being to all patients, providing preventative, restorative, and cosmetic dentistry for the entire family. Message underwritten by Dr. Kenton Gleichman, Dr. Steve Karbaka, Dr. Christine Mulcahy, and Dr. Ben Nagel. Dental Associates, addressing your smile, needs, and dreams. Online at DesMoines-DentalAssociates.com.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Faith on Trial provided by Paul Martin and Paul Mitchell, owners of Imogene Ingredients. Imogene Ingredients supply specialized feed ingredients for livestock and pet diets to improve maternal and young animal health in both conventional and organic production. Information about Pharmatan and other products at ImogeneIngredients.com. Paul and Paul are members of St. Augustine's Knights of Columbus and encourage their brother knights to keep standing for their faith.
Here's your forecast on Iowa Catholic Radio. Temperatures will be warming up for the next couple of days with slim rain chances. It'll be partly sunny through the afternoon. Our high today in the mid-80s. Overnight, clear and upper 60s, and then a mix of sun and clouds again tomorrow. We'll be hitting 90 for the afternoon high, maybe a few late-day showers. The weather is brought to you by Divine Treasures, a Catholic book and gift store serving the Des Moines community for over 25 years. I'm meteorologist Steve Hamilton on Iowa Catholic Radio.
And we're back. This is Faith on Trial on Iowa Catholic Radio, and we're joined now by Leah Patterson, who's an attorney with First Liberty. Leah, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
Fine. You know something about this case that was decided by the Supreme Court a week or so ago, this Espinoza versus Moncada, dealing with what I refer to as the Little Blaine amendments that we have. Can you give us a little bit of a background on the case and then let our listeners know how this is playing out now?
Sure, absolutely. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Thank
always.
you.
Thank you.
So Montana established a scholarship tax credit program to provide tuition assistance to low-income families, basically to help parents send their children to the private school of their choice. But under the Montana Supreme Court ended that program altogether because of a state constitutional provision prohibiting state funding of religious schools. And that's what you referenced as the Little Blaine Amendment. The Supreme Court in the Espinoza case found that applying it in that way was unconstitutionally discriminatory to exclude religious schools from participating equally in a neutral school choice program. That's the case in a nutshell.
All right. Now, this obviously was an attack on these Blaine amendments, and there were at one time about 30 states that had one of those. And again, the idea goes back to something like 1875 or so, when the original Blaine Amendment to the United States Constitution was proposed and then rejected. But these have picked up steam across the country. And the question that we looked at here as this was being argued is, what now is the status of these Little Blaine amendments, these state constitutional amendments that are prohibiting funds to be used for private schools?
Well, I'd say that the outlook for the Little Blaine amendments is not very good. The Supreme Court did not categorically invalidate them, but the effect of the Espinoza opinion will make them much more difficult to apply. So basically the rule going forward for school choice programs is that, a state does not have to have a school choice program. But if it has a school choice program, it must allow religious schools to participate. And to the extent a Little Blaine amendment is to the contrary, it's unconstitutional.
All right. But I did notice as I read the especially the dissents, this did seem to be a much narrower decision than those of us who were hoping for a complete overturn of the Blaine amendments
right.
were expecting.
Well, I guess the typical lawyer answer is yes and no, in the sense that
I've given that several times.
Well, the court will only usually address the parties that are before it. So it's not going to make a ruling that's broader in scope than the specific people that are before it. But the logic will apply in other cases. So, the Supreme Court can emphasize the narrowness of its holding, or the dissents especially will try to emphasize the narrowness of a holding. But the bottom line is that if the logical principle holds for these parties, it will probably hold in others. Now, of course, individual cases have to be litigated themselves. But one of the most important pieces of the opinion, at least to me, was that the court rejected some of the typical arguments that get made in favor of excluding religious schools from participating in school choice programs, such as protecting public school funding, for example, because that interest has obviously gone out the window if they're already funding a school choice program that goes to secular private schools, rather. So that's just an example without bogging down too much.
Yeah. How many cases are you aware of, especially at First Liberty, are being litigated that have some of these same issues at hand? Whether it's a constitutional amendment like the Blaine Amendment, or whether it's other rulings that or other niceties that the state or the school administration may have that prohibiting funds from being used for, not only for parochial schools, but for charter schools and other things.
Well, we're certainly aware of a number. In fact, First Liberty is involved in a case originating from Maine that's waiting for a decision from a federal court of appeals, basically challenging the Maine school choice statute, which prohibits religious schools from participating. It's with the Espinoza decision, we're hoping for a good outcome in that as well.
Okay. Timely for you in that particular case.
Very much so.
Speaking of timely, I think the fact that this case was ruled on in the middle of this pandemic, when we're arguing whether or not our children should get back to school, I'm hearing more and more people say, give me the money that you spend in my school district where my child cannot go to school or can only learn online, and I will find a suitable education for them. How does this ruling, will it help in this effect in transferring the funds that a school district receives on behalf, because most school districts get their funding based on head count. So there's a value to each child in that district or that school building financially. Do you think it will help to be moved towards a system that allows the money to follow the child?
Well, I think that, and this is just my speculation, but given as you mentioned, the pandemic and all of the issues that are going on in society right now, that I think that would encourage states to start reconsidering allowing more school choice, more flexible school options. And this Espinoza decision makes it where when a state decides to do that, religious schools get to participate on the same terms as everybody else, so that with the increased pressure that states may have to switch to that kind of flexible system, the people of faith will be able to take advantage of it to the same extent as everybody else.
Okay. And from what I understand, there's 30 of the 50 states that have these little Blaine amendments. And we could see those diminish or be eliminated by legislatures over the next few years based on the decision.
They could, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter if the legislature officially repeals them or not. If the state tries to apply them, they're going to get litigated, and under this case, the little Blaine amendments will have a hard time of surviving in these individual cases.
Very good.
I think you point out something, Gina, that's probably correct, that we'll see more of a legislative remedy than we will a legal remedy at this point because of the decision.
Oh, so...
I that's my opinion, but then...
You think
I'm sitting behind a microphone instead of in a courtroom right now. So
or a state legislator.
Yeah.
As a state legislator.
Leah, tell me a little bit more about this Maine case that you have going.
Certainly. So basically in Maine, some areas in that state are don't have enough population to have a high school of their own. So what the state does is it will pay the tuition to a private school of the parent's choice, because there isn't a public high school for them to go to. Back in the 80s, the Maine Attorney General, I think, interpreted some Supreme Court cases to require that program to exclude religious schools. And so that's how it's been for almost 40 years, I suppose. And under this decision, the Espinoza decision, that kind of structure is really not going to be able to survive. But we filed suit a few years ago based on the Trinity Lutheran decision, which Espinoza builds on.
Yeah, I thought Trinity Lutheran was an interesting decision when it came down, and I thought it settled a lot of things that apparently may not be settled as we see some of the cases come down. But we'll have to look into that main case and maybe have you back when that decision comes down. Seems to me you've reminded me of something that I've read before, so I probably have it in a file at home.
Well, for more information, it's on our website at firstliberty.org.
That's what I was going to ask you. Where do we find more information? Firstliberty.org.
You have the cases are all itemized on at their website.
Yeah, their website.
So
you can your link.
Follow the progress.
Link in, and I like to mention this with these groups that come on is they provide legal representation pro bono to the parties. They're organizations that basically live off donations. So if anybody has any spare change that they want to send their way, I'm sure, Leah, you'll be happy to take it and help further what you are doing.
Well, it's very kind of you. We certainly appreciate any help we can get in keeping the lights on, but by the grace of God, we're able to provide our services for free to our clients.
Well, and that's right. And a lot of people, we have a number of these people that come on every week to talk about these cases, and I think a lot of people don't realize that they are not charging for their legal services, that they're tax-exempt organizations, but they get donations, and that's how they live.
Very committed to the cause.
Very committed to the cause. Anything else coming up that we should take note of that we'll want to have you back for one of these days?
Well, the landscape is always changing, especially with, every time a state shuts down all the churches, we start getting to work again.
Oh, yeah.
We've had plenty of material.
We've had plenty of material there, and we've had plenty of people saying, hey, our appointment tomorrow? We just got a closure order from our governor, and all the churches are calling us today. Can we postpone that? So I know you guys are working out there on that. And I know they just in California, they closed everything down, didn't they? All the churches and everything?
They did. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot of this is in God's hands, and God provides people like First Liberty to come in and to help us out down here on the way.
Appreciate it.
Leah, thank you very much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
That's First Liberty. It's firstliberty.org if you want to get a hold of her, find out what more is going on. And Leah, we'll have you back when we see this main case come up.
Well, thank you. I look forward to it.
Thank you very much. Leah Patterson, attorney with First Liberty. And we will be right back after these messages.
Is it time for a new roof? Then it could be time for you to get to know Bell Construction. Bell Construction is a roofing company entering its 30th year of business. They specialize in residential re-roofs, like commercial jobs, and have the experience to meet all of your roofing needs with personal service. With Bell Construction, the owner will come to your home or place of business in person to inspect and ensure the quality of work that you deserve. They pride themselves in working with you on a personal basis and making sure you are satisfied. Bell Construction, 515-963-4494.
What is the best gift ever? Giving a Catholic education is at the top of my list. Your contribution to CTO helps families send their children to our Catholic schools who otherwise could not afford it. In giving to CTO, you receive the best tax credits ever. Pledge or donate online at ctoiowa.org. The bottom line, it's for the kids and their future.
Support for Dowling Catholic Sports on Iowa Catholic Radio is provided in part by Ashworth Vision Clinic. With 2 licensed optometrists, Barbara Sheets, a Dowling graduate, and Dr. Greg Harper, the Ashworth Vision Clinic team provides complete eye exams, contact lenses, glasses, glaucoma testing, and pre- and post-operative care. Ashworth Vision Clinic is located at Ashworth and 60th Street in West Des Moines. 515-440-4610. AshworthVision.com. 515-440-4610. AshworthVision.com. Ashworth Vision Clinic.
Thank you, Dental Associates, for underwriting Dowling Catholic Sports 365. With over 40 years' experience, Dental Associates is a group dental practice with the mission of promoting optimum health and well-being to all patients, providing preventative, restorative, and cosmetic dentistry for the entire family. Message underwritten by Dr. Kenton Gleichman, Dr. Steve Karbaka, Dr. Christine Mulcahy, and Dr. Ben Nagel. Dental Associates, addressing your smile, needs, and dreams. Online at DesMoines-DentalAssociates.com.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Faith on Trial provided by Paul Martin and Paul Mitchell, owners of Imogene Ingredients. Imogene Ingredients supply specialized feed ingredients for livestock and pet diets to improve maternal and young animal health in both conventional and organic production. Information about Pharmatan and other products at ImogeneIngredients.com. Paul and Paul are members of St. Augustine's Knights of Columbus and encourage their brother knights to keep standing for their faith.
Thank you, Skeffington's Formal Wear, for sponsoring Dowling Catholic High School football. In business since 1951, Skeffington's Formal Wear offers quality service, style, and selection, providing tuxedos, suits, and casual groom attire for weddings, proms, and any other special occasion. Skeffington's Formal Wear, with convenient locations in Des Moines, West Des Moines, Davenport, Coralville, and Ankeny. All locations are family-owned and operated by members in their respective communities, fitting you for life celebrations. Online at skeffingtons.com.
And we're back. This is Faith on Trial on Iowa Catholic Radio. And Gina, a couple of things come to mind with our guest this week. First thing is when we're talking about the abortion pill that they're providing to these young women who write in or text the doctor and say, I need the pill.
Right.
Was the problems that they have with it are in many instances the same type of problems they were having with the mail-in suicide pills. Remember, we've talked about that before.
Oh, sure.
Where the people are getting prescriptions for physician-assisted suicide, and they're getting these pills that come in the mail that they have to follow specific directions on, and that sometimes they take these pills, they take them wrong, incorrectly, and they suffer for weeks before they finally die.
Mm-hmm. Then it just seems like negligence or malpractice to me to have doctors be involved in this sort of prescribing chemicals to individuals that can be so harmful.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, Maggie, I don't know if Maggie touched on it or if I read it in her blog, but she said that it said that Iowa is having difficulty finding physicians who will perform abortions. That's one of the reasons clinics have been closing down. I think with more technology and more science and more observation and hopefully public support, we can continue to have that same process take effect with this chemical abortion.
Yeah, but it seems that some of these things that end life, the chemical abortion, the suicide pills, almost willy-nilly they can hand those out. Yet if you want to get your prescription for high blood pressure renewed, you got to have a doctor's visit. Mm-hmm. You got to go in. The guy wants to see you, and he or she wants to examine you, see if you still need that, need a different dose, you need whatever. But you can't get a simple prescription filled unless you have a doctor's appointment, and the doctor is going to require that appointment before he writes the prescription or authorizes its renewal. And yet we don't seem to have that with these telemed things. You know, there's another thing that's very similar that I see advertised on the TV. It's for male enhancement drugs. And what you do is you call this number, you talk to a doctor, you tell him what you think your problem might be, and he writes a prescription and sends you these drugs. And I think, what a silly way to do these. I mean, these are things that may harm people,
right?
Not taken properly.
But telemedicine is becoming more, especially through this pandemic. I know my daughter had a telemedicine visit with her doctor. Mm-hmm. Now, he wanted to see her in a follow-up when she could come into person. But I think, how does medicine happen under these circumstances? True medicine, especially in a case where the emotional needs of the patient are very important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Especially in the area of, like, we were talking about suicide and abortion. I mean, these are things where people are very troubled, and it may take a good counselor to get them through it, especially the aftermath of an abortion.
Interesting that you read these stories, and so many. If you Google it, you'll see the RU 486 incidences of these young ladies. They'll blog about it, or they always have someone supportive there, a roommate or their boyfriend, or those individuals struggle with watching their friend go through this extremely painful experience.
And now what if you can't tell anybody about it because the child you aborted is your stepfather?
Right, and you're all alone.
And you're all alone. You can't talk to mom, can't talk to anybody. And of course it may even be worse now because schools are closed and you don't even have a school counselor. And that's a problem with keeping the schools closed, of course, is that there are people students that are suffering at home, and that's not picked up on.
They're all alone.
They're all alone. And then when we talk about the Blaine amendments, I didn't want to get too far in the weeds, but it's just something.
Yeah, you lawyers like to talk in a different vocabulary.
If you think about it, and here's one of the problems with the Blaine amendments, and this is one of the things that was pointed out in the case that we didn't get to. There is a inherent conflict between the two clauses of the Freedom of Religion Clause, the Establishment Clause and the Free Exercise Clause. And what the inherent conflict means is if you just sit and think about it a little bit, if you take them both to the logical conclusions, they would nullify the decision you would make in the other end. If you take the free exercise to its logical conclusion, you look at the other one and say, well, the decision you made over there must be wrong in the same way. And so that's where we get this concept of this play in the joints, where these two clauses intersect. And that's why these things sometimes can be a mobile target. And that's why I think that the decision is probably more narrow than we would have hoped that it would have been, that they would not have, or we would hope that they would have just said, Blaine amendments are out.
Are out.
But they didn't.
They didn't go that
far. They didn't go that extreme. And probably one of the reasons why they didn't go to that extreme, I think some of the conservative justices might have wanted to do that, but in order to have 5 votes out of the 9 to do it, they may have had
to lean more on the establishment clause.
And that's what happens. Mm-hmm. And so I would worry a little bit about future decisions in what happens. I'm gonna find this main case that Leah talked about, and we're going to have Leah back when we have
she
that.
indicated there are quite a few cases throughout the
Absolutely.
30 states that have these Blaine amendments that are in the courts right now, and I would imagine if a majority of them are ruled in the favor of the Catholic schools or the religious institutions, that it would be harder and harder for the states to hang on tightly to the Blaine amendment.
Yeah, some of them will try. Here's going to be the problem, though. And it's going to be to our benefit, really, is that on the basis of the Espinoza case, a lot of these states that are pursuing these cases where they're trying to uphold the Blaine Amendment may simply look at it and say, this isn't worth fighting for anymore. We can see the handwriting on the wall. We're going to withdraw the objections. We're going to dismiss our case, or we'll let a lower court ruling stand, or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And we're not going to take it that far. So we're not going to fight as hard now. There are going to be some places, though, and I can probably name the states that if they have the little Blaine amendments, they're going to fight all the way to the Supreme Court, because they do have a little bit of play here, the play between the joints, as they talked about in the court case. And And like I say, it's a 5-4 decision. So with the change in the court, and who knows how the election is going to go, and who's going to be picking judges this time next year, they may want to hold out. And obviously, there is a anti-Catholic sentiment to these things, and unfortunately, we're stuck with it.
Well, I know through the recent protests and the Black Lives Matters and other events, I have heard that there are communities in this country where the socioeconomic diversity in the schools has really affected the education of the students in those schools, and that they're looking for more open enrollment opportunities for everyone. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad to know that the Blaine Amendment has been kind of by the Espinoza case and coming down from the Supreme Court last week, has allowed the Catholic schools to become players in these open enrollment issues, because I think they provide so much for everyone in terms of education and ethics and morality and the teaching of the faith.
I closed my column this week talking about the Blaine Amendments. And the question was, so the little Blaine Amendment's dead? And I said, dying, but still with a weak heartbeat. And I think that's probably the best way to summarize it. All right, let's end with our prayer. St. Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle, be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, thrust into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl about the world, seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. For Gene and myself, thank you for listening. Join us next week for another edition of Faith on Trial on Iowa Catholic Radio. And thank you to Paul and Paul from Imogene Ingredients for sponsoring the program. Until next week, have a blessed and peaceful week.
Thank you.
Our freedom of conscience and religion is being challenged by laws and regulations imposed by secular society. Faith on Trial, with Defender of the Faith, Deacon Mike Mano. Faith on Trial, Thursdays at 10 a.m. on Iowa Catholic Radio, iowacatholicradio.com, and the Iowa Catholic Radio app.
Support for Faith on Trial and Iowa Catholic Radio provided in part by Imogene Ingredients.